The world was beautiful. God had made it full of wonderful things. There were sparkling rivers and tall green trees. But, the people he had made, they kind of forgot about him. Their hearts became dark and full of mean thoughts. It was as if they had a sickness of the soul. And, honestly, it was spreading everywhere. They didn't love each other anymore. They pushed and they shoved. They only thought about themselves. It was a loud, noisy, angry world. And it made God's heart very, very sad. He looked at the beautiful world he had made and saw it was full of shadows. But in this dark and noisy world, there was one man who was different. His name was Noah. Noah loved God. He listened to God. He talked to God like a friend. While everyone else was busy being selfish and mean, Noah was busy being kind. He walked with God. His heart wasn't full of shadows. It was full of light. He tried to tell people about God's way, the happy way, but they just laughed at him. They thought he was silly for loving a God they couldn't even see. They didn't want to listen. God saw Noah. It was like finding a single, beautiful flower in a field full of weeds. Noah's goodness was a quiet song in a world full of shouting. God looked at Noah and his family, and he smiled. Here was someone who remembered him. Here was someone who still knew how to love. God knew he had to do something about the world's sickness, but he also knew he had to save this good man. He had a very special job for Noah, a job so big it would save the whole world. It was a secret plan, just between God and his friend Noah. So, while the world spun on, getting darker and meaner every day, a plan was being made. A plan to wash the world clean. A plan to start all over again. And it all started with this one man, Noah, who wasn't afraid to be different. He didn't know it yet, but he was about to become the captain of the most important ship in history. He was about to go on an adventure bigger than anyone could ever imagine, an adventure with God. God looked down from heaven and his heart broke. It wasn't an angry kind of broken. It was a sad kind of broken, like a father watching his children fight. He saw all the hurting and the hating. He saw that the people he loved had filled their hearts with everything but love. Every thought they had, every plan they made was only bad all the time. It was a deep sadness that filled God. He had made this wonderful place for them to live and be happy. But they had turned it into a place of tears and fear. So God whispered to Noah. He told him his secret plan. "I am going to wash the world clean, Noah," God said. "I'm going to send a great big rain. A flood so big it will cover everything. It will wash away all the meanness and the sadness. It will make everything new again." This wasn't a happy plan for God. It was a necessary one. It was the only way to heal the world from its sickness. He was a doctor giving strong medicine to make things better, even if the medicine was hard to take. God's voice was gentle but firm. He wasn't shouting in anger. He was speaking like a friend telling a very important secret. "But I will save you, Noah," God promised. "You and your wife and your 3 sons and their wives. You will be safe." God didn't want to destroy everything. He wanted to save what was good. He wanted to rescue the future. And Noah was the key. He was the one God trusted to carry the hope for a new world. He was the seed from which a new, kinder world would grow. This plan was huge. It was scary. A flood to cover the whole earth. It was almost too big to believe. But Noah listened. He didn't argue. He didn't ask a lot of questions. He just listened to the sad voice of his friend, God. He heard the pain in God's heart, and he knew that whatever God asked him to do, he would do it. Because Noah trusted God. He knew that even in this sad, scary plan, God had a reason, a good reason, a reason full of love. God gave Noah the instructions. "Build a boat, Noah," he said, "but not just any boat, a great big ark." And God told him exactly how to build it. He told him to use strong gopher wood. He told him how long it should be, how wide, and how tall. It would have 3 stories, full of rooms and windows. And he told Noah to cover it all over with sticky tar, inside and out, so that not a single drop of water could get in. It was a very detailed plan for a very important boat. So Noah got to work. He told his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Together, they started building. Can you imagine building a giant boat on dry land, far away from any sea? The sun was hot, the ground was dusty, and there was Noah and his family, sawing wood and hammering nails. Day after day, week after week, month after month. They worked hard, following God's plan exactly. They didn't cut any corners. Every piece of wood was measured just right. Every seam was sealed tight with tar. Their neighbours came to watch. They pointed and laughed. "Look at silly old Noah," they would say. "He's building a boat in his backyard. Does he think it's going to rain?" They thought he was crazy. They couldn't see any clouds. They couldn't feel any rain. They only saw a man working on a boat that seemed to have no purpose. They didn't understand that Noah wasn't just building a boat. He was building an escape. He was building a promise. He was building a rescue for the future. But Noah didn't stop. He didn't listen to their teasing. He just kept on hammering. He just kept on trusting. He knew he wasn't building the boat for his neighbours. He was building it for God. And when you're doing what God asks, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. So the ark grew bigger and bigger. It was as long as a football field and as tall as a building. A giant wooden promise sitting right there in the middle of the dust, waiting for the rain that only Noah and God knew was coming. One day, the hammering stopped. The ark was finished. It stood there, huge and quiet, just waiting. Noah and his family stood back and looked at what they had built. It was exactly as God had said. And then, something amazing started to happen. In the distance, they saw a cloud of dust. But it wasn't a dust storm. It was a parade. A parade of animals. Not just any animals. Every kind of animal you could imagine, and they were all coming straight toward the ark. God had sent them. He had whispered to the animals all over the world, from the deep jungles, the tall mountains, and the wide plains. And they came. 2 by 2, they walked. A boy lion and a girl lion with their big, soft paws. A boy elephant and a girl elephant with their long, swinging trunks. 2 tall giraffes, 2 stripy zebras, 2 grumpy bears. The little mice scurried along, and the slow tortoises plodded. It was honestly the most wonderful and strange parade the world had ever seen. They didn't fight. The wolf walked peacefully beside the lamb. The leopard walked calmly next to the little goat. It was as if God had told them all to be friends for this special trip. They walked right up the big ramp and into the ark, just as God had commanded. 2 of every kind of animal that lived on the land, and 2 of every kind of bird that flew in the air. The ark began to fill up with a wonderful collection of chirps and growls, hoots and roars. Noah and his family welcomed them all. They guided them to their rooms inside the giant boat. They made sure every animal was safe and sound. It was a big, noisy, floating zoo, and Noah was the zookeeper. He was in charge of God's precious creation. He looked at all the animals, big and small, and he knew that God's plan was not just about saving people. It was about saving all of his beautiful world. The last animal walked up the ramp, and then Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives walked in after them. As soon as Noah and his family were safely inside, God himself shut the big door of the ark. And then it began. A tiny drop of rain, then another, and another. Soon the drops turned into a steady pitter-patter. The pitter-patter turned into a downpour. It wasn't just raining from the clouds above. Water started to bubble up from deep inside the earth. It was as if the whole world was crying. The sky turned dark, and the rain fell harder and harder. For 40 days and 40 nights, it rained without stopping. The little puddles turned into big pools. The pools turned into rivers. The rivers turned into a giant rushing sea. The water rose higher and higher. It covered the fields. It covered the houses. It covered the tallest trees and then the highest mountains. Soon, there was nothing to see but water. The whole world was covered in a great big ocean. All the laughing and the teasing had stopped. Everything was quiet, except for the sound of the rain. But inside the ark, Noah and his family and all the animals were safe and dry. The giant boat bobbed up and down on the water. It floated on top of the great flood. It was like a little floating island of hope in a world of water. Noah took care of the animals. He fed them and made sure they were comfortable. It was a lot of work, but they were all in it together. The lion, the lamb, the elephant, and the mouse, all floating together, waiting for the rain to stop. The ark drifted on the endless water. There was no land to see anywhere, just water and sky. For many, many months, they floated. They were completely alone, just them and God. They had to trust that God had not forgotten them. They had to believe that somewhere, under all that water, there was still a world waiting for them. They were safe inside their wooden rescue boat, a tiny speck of life on a giant quiet sea, holding on to God's promise. After a very long time, the rain stopped. The water slowly began to go down. One day, the ark stopped floating. It bumped gently and then stood still. It had landed on the top of a mountain called Ararat. Noah and his family had been inside the ark for over a year. They waited. Noah sent out a bird, a raven, to see if there was dry land. Then he sent a dove. The dove came back. He sent it again, and it came back with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. There was land. A new world was waiting. Finally, God spoke to Noah again. "It is time," he said. "Come out of the ark." God opened the big door. Noah and his family stepped out of the ark and onto the fresh, clean earth. They took a deep breath of clean air. The animals came out too, 2 by 2. They blinked in the bright sunlight. They stretched their legs and ran and flew and hopped onto the new green land. The world was quiet and clean. It was like the first morning all over again. A brand new start. The very first thing Noah did was build an altar. He wanted to say thank you to God. Thank you for keeping us safe. Thank you for the new, clean world. Thank you for your promise. God was so pleased with Noah's thankful heart. He made a promise back to Noah and to all the people and animals who would ever live. I will never again wash the world clean with a flood, God said. This is my promise to you, a forever promise. And as he spoke, God painted a sign in the sky to help everyone remember. He stretched a beautiful, colourful bow across the clouds. A rainbow. It was a bridge of light from heaven to earth. Whenever you see this bow in the clouds, God said, you will remember my promise. And so, Noah and his family began their new life in the new world, always under the watch of God's beautiful, colourful promise in the sky. A promise that says, I love you, and I will always take care of you.